Jim, what a honor. I mean, that really, like, I always wanted to meet you. I told you this offline too. And now I have here, you are here. So we can fuck it up together, this. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you. That's very kind. But I'm pretty sure you'll, it's very kind what you said, misguided more so. And I'm sure you will change your mind by the time we're done with this thing. It's going to be like 5 minutes, right?
5 minutes across the ocean.
5 minutes, great.
You can
Because
get it.
I'm really busy doing nothing these days.
Okay, first question. Arthur Miller once admitted that there was a leapfrogging in his creativity. And when asked how long it will take him to put an idea on paper, he answered that it will take him like 8 years. Throughout these 8 years, he would never think of work on the idea. But after the 8-year mark, the idea would start bugging him so much that he would be forced to put it on paper. Now, 8 years is an ocean of time. It's a lot of water to go through. Is there a similar mark in your creative process? How long does it take for you to go from conception to execution?
Well, let's start with Arthur Miller. No shit. I'm actually thinking of Henry Miller.
That's another great one, though. That's another great
Well,
one.
Henry Miller was too busy getting married and divorced to spend all that much time writing. Arthur Miller, the playwright, you know, I think what he's saying there sounds a bit formulaic for me. An idea only happens once every 8 years. Well, I think you can do a little better than that. I don't really have any such thing. I tend to bump into these things, falling down. Oh, I hit my head. Oh, wait, that's an idea. Getting sick gives me another idea. I always found, though, when I was working in advertising, two things. Walking, has always been considered a great way to think. I mean, if it's good enough for Nietzsche, never mind he went insane and ended up subsisting on his own urine and waste. Aristotle did it. Now, not to say that anybody in advertising is a Nietzsche or a Aristotle, although there are a number of fucking crazy people in advertising. Hello. That they just happen. You bump into them. They're out there everywhere, and all you have to do is bump into them. It's like a rat in New York City. You're never more than 70 feet away from a rat, wherever you are in New York City. So the rats are like ideas. You just have to walk around a corner and you'll hit one. And then always carry a notepad, write it down, because you'll forget. Because more ideas will come into your head. I still sleep with a notepad next to my bed, although I have a harder time waking up these days as the older I get, unless I have to go to the bathroom 7 times in the middle of the night. Another lovely thing with aging. And I always told teammates or people working for me, if you're going to sit in a room and must think of an idea, you're not going to come up with an idea. You got to get out of the building, it's been said before, get out of advertising proper, i.e. the building, stop thinking about it, use other cultural touch points, reading a book, seeing a movie, making a wonderful dinner. Other creative things I've found would open up your mind as a floodgate. It's not, I never really thought it was hard to come up with ideas. I mean,
but does it happen to you that sometime
advertising tends to tell people, oh, this is really difficult what we do. Advertising in its essence is very, very easy. All you're doing is creating a dialogue with somebody. You know, it's unfortunately advertising is populated with people that have nothing better to do than worry about advertising.
That's like, you know, the fact we say like you never like too far away from a rat, you're never too far away from an idea. I remember my time like living in New York City. I always had like these like rats, always like, you know, and
Yeah,
I would
their ideas.
I would love that. But then like let me ask you something. This is like completely off. Okay, I want to write your metaphor. The rats are the idea. What's the exterminator? The guy that comes like and kill all your rats. Is he the client?
No, to put what I just said about advertising is easy. Actually, I think it's populated more by people that have nothing better to do than make it difficult. And you know, so the analogy goes to the rat. You're gonna just let the rat or run into you.
That's a great advice, man. I love this analogy. It's a great analogy. Look, second question. We are nothing without an idea. I used to say that a desire for an idea is like bait on a hook. How deep the hook goes depends on the bail of consciousness. It's a little bit of daydreaming. Thoughts come and boom, you got caught, a little powerful fish with red fins, a little dancing speckled eyes. These are the words of the brilliant weirdo of David Lynch. Borrowing from his metaphor, I would think that you caught some pretty big fish in your career. Is there a fish you haven't caught yet? Or is there a rat you haven't bumped into yet? Is there a bait you haven't thrown into the sea of your creativity?
Well, let me throw an analogy at you. I always used to tell our teams that, you know, and I think I still tell myself this day, you know, all the big fish that you've caught today are just practice for the bigger fish you'll catch tomorrow. I mean, and I'm afraid of fish. As a little kid, I was scared witless. You know, you're pulling this monster out of the sea. But again, just keep fishing.
Keep fishing.
I mean, it's fun. You know, I actually, when I left the agency for the last time, I stuck a note on my door that said, "Gone fishing."
I love that. See, that's nice. So why like gone fishing? If
well, that's an American term for I'm out of here. Yeah, you know, vacation. I mean,
that's great, man. That's a great advice. Third question, and this is gonna be John Belushi in this question. Once John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd took Brian Wilson surfing. They show up to his door, dressed as a cops, go him in the car, draw him to Trancas, California, and force him into the fucking water. Brian was still wearing his robe and somehow managed to not drown while attempting to surf. The author of Surfing USA had never actually been a surfer. Rolling Stone photographer Anne Leibovitz was on the beach that day and captured the mesmerized image of Brian Wilson in the water. And it became like the cover of the issue of Rolling Stone magazine in 1976. It was a class act from Blues Brothers. If John and Dan Aykroyd will show up at your door today, right now, looking for something that you did advertise, but you never really tried firsthand, what would that thing be?
Well, first I'd ask them for their autographs. Are you talking about the Anna Leibovitz color where she just painted their faces blue?
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I'm not sure I would knock on Brian Wilson's door, given that he's totally fucking insane. um, uh, they came to me that I haven't. Oh God.
Like, you know what? It's like here. Okay, let me give you like an entry door. Maybe resonate with you. I do believe that we are not very different as a creative from actors. Meaning, like there is some kind of like method acting when you get a brief, and you have to like think like the way someone that would buy that thing would think, like the consumer would think, right? It happened to me in my career that I work on things that I was not interested at all, but I had to become that person somehow, trying to profile, trying to lifestyle. So that's what happened to Brian Wilson. Wrote a song on Surfing USA, was not even a surfer. And it happened to you work on a client that I know that most of your work was Nike. And like you were like amazing, like, you created the brand, but was any other client that you worked that it wasn't really in your life? Was not something that you really like, was using or like, consuming?
Well, when I briefly worked on Microsoft, I refused to get rid of my Apple.
Here we go.
That was considered heresy. That was heresy. Yeah, you can look back in advertising and, oh, I regret this or regret that. After all, no less than Oscar Wilde said, basically, most of us live a life of creeping common sense. And the person that basically lives a life without regrets has lived a regretful life.
Totally agree with Oscar.
So, I mean, if they knocked on my door, again, I liked what I did. So, and then especially liked when we had a vodka client. I really like that. I like vodka. I like vodka for breakfast. I recommend it when anybody calls me with a problem. I recommend vodka.
I think this, man. They will knock on your door, and they will holding an IBM computer, and they will tell you like, Jim, it's finally time to fucking throw away the Apple and get on an IBM computer. And then I leave it there. I leave it there, man. Okay.
Okay. Okay, as long as I take the computer, as long as Belushi didn't ask me, you want to go party at the Chateau Montmartre? Yeah, okay.
Oh, man. Okay, man.
But back to my career, again, working on Nike, I guess I would regret, in hindsight, it was a very addictive drug. And I got kicked off the account one way or another, one part of it 7 times, which hurt at the time. But in hindsight, I wish I would have, not been so addicted to it and tried other things like running, an office outside of Portland, working more on other accounts, expanding my horizons. But, that's hindsight. At the time, I mean, I loved my job. I had a blast. It was really fun to be me.
That's awesome.
I was like a kid in a candy store that got paid to be in the candy store, and every once in a while I'd have to retreat and hide under my desk. Or as I got older and did something bad, why didn't make me stand in the corner for a year or so. I regret some of the things I may have said to people.
Well, look, because this last couple of sentences that you say to me, that the perfect lead away to the fourth question.
Okie doke.
You quit advertising to become a full-time contemporary artists. I don't even know if someone become an artist. I think like someone like, you know, he's already in there. So like, forgive me.
Well,
Like,
I woke up this morning, I want to be an artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So forgive me for the way I wrote the sentence. Actually, what a fucking dumb person I was. So like, sorry, forgive the word become, okay? Forget the verb become. But in your own words, according to Wikipedia page, which someone else wrote for you, you went from a career of selling people things they don't need to making things that people don't want. Somehow, and for some strange reason, this statement connects to another artist that I admire greatly and I'm very fascinated by, which is like Francis Bacon. And he say, it's all so meaningless. We may as well be extraordinary. After several decades in advertising, did you find meaningless and wanted to try something extraordinary? And what motivates you really to change the course? I know you had a blast.
Yeah. Well, when an oncologist tells you you're going to die in 2 years, I guess, you know, it makes you reconsider things. I mean, in a big way, that sounds like a cliche, but it's true. And I didn't want my tombstone to read, "Here lies the guy that did that bow nose commercial." But as my mom pointed out, yeah. And then you went on to make Hitler art. So you want your tombstone to read, "Here lies the guy that did that Hitler art." She go, "I'd go with the bow one."
You know, it's so interesting. I think, like, you know, as I say offline, someone mentioned your name to me. Coming from Europe, I didn't really know you. I didn't know your advertising work. So actually,
how dare you?
I
Do
know.
you know who I used to be?
It sounds like Jerry Seinfeld when he got upset with what was the talk show where he well, anyway, well, wait a moment. So what I want to say is, like, my first encounter with your work, it was actually your artist work, which I found like not because you're in front of me, but I found amazing. Like, I found like the concept at the base of each of like the Hitler figurine and every other series of the figurine. I found like super killer. Like, it's great. But it's just funny to think that you are such a legend in the advertising world, but I actually experienced only, like, you know, the artist part. So it works well for your tombstone, because I'm one of them that say, "Oh yeah, Jim, the artist." I would never say, "Oh, Jim, the guy that work in ad."
Well,
You know?
again, thank you for your misguidedness, and your lousy opinion on art, or your lousy taste in art. But again, I mean, life gave me a little nudge. You know, if I didn't get sick, I think I'd be dead, because somebody at Wieden+Kennedy or a client would have killed me, or I'd be in jail. Yeah, when I worked at Wieden+Kennedy, we did not know how to spell HR.
Yeah, man. Fifth question. Vivian Westwood, talking about people that would get in trouble, helped set the style for modern punk and new wave music. She's considered as one of the most unconventional and outspoken fashion designers in the world. But Vivian's childhood years were far from London's high life. She say, "I lived in a part of the country that had grown up in the Industrial Revolution. I didn't know anything about art gallery. I never seen an art book, never been to the theater." Her words debunk the belief that it's the way we grow up that affects what we become later in life. Yet, I believe that the lack of is what actually pushed her to become a cultural icon. Now, was something missing in your childhood that created the desire and the willingness to pursue these things in life?
Absolutely. Don't let me, after I answer, don't let me forget to go back to a Vivian Westwood story.
Yeah.
and the old store on
On
Kings
Kings
Road.
Road, named
Saks.
Zach.
Yeah.
I was
Anyway, I have these two things in my life that if they didn't happen, we would not be talking right now. I guarantee it. One was in 4th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Eakins, sent me to summer school. I was going to flunk 4th grade because I was a solid D+ student, especially in math. I couldn't count my toes to save my life. I had no conception for it, or sciences, or just learning in general. Just I was bad at it. I liked to eat paste in elementary school, and that was about it. So she tells my parents he's going to flunk unless he goes to math for summer school. But I want to try something. By the way, he's so bad at all that left brain stuff. I want him to take another class that might be good for the other part of his brain, which I don't even know if it exists. And that class was creative writing.
That's awesome.
It was, this teacher scared the daylights out of me because every time she would laugh, her dentures would fall. So she didn't laugh a lot. And, I don't think that had an immediate effect, but it had an effect. It certainly changed the way I looked at learning, that I thought, oh, learning actually can be fun if you stop complaining about it. And then I've told this story 100 times, but it's still a true story. In 1972, my best friend, Randy Tredovic, told me about this British musician. And at the time, I couldn't tell one Beatle from the other. I didn't know this. I had one record in my record collection, the soundtrack to The Charge of the Light Brigade. I was probably the only 14-year-old in Seattle that knew what the Charge of the Light Brigade was in the Crimean War. But my friend Randy says, let's go to this concert. There's this new guy from England. It was Halloween 1972. And the guy's name was David Bowie. And I didn't know who he was. I thought he fucking died at the Alamo and had a big knife named after him. And out comes this man in a jockstrap with orange hair. And my jaw just went, I want that. I want that. And gradually my life became obsessed with David Bowie. And what I learned from Bowie was thinking perpendicular. And also the guy that comes up with the idea second makes all the money. Bowie is famous for doing and saying, but that moment, that was like, wow. And by 1974, I dressed like Bowie, everything Bowie. I was on the golf team and I'd be dressed like the Thin White Duke. And I became obsessive. And it opened doors to music, which I never had opened. It opened doors to art because through Bowie, learned who Warhol is and Lou Reed and all that connection. And my universe just got bigger and bigger. And my rooms gradually transformed from posters of Willie Stargell and Roberto Clemente and the Pittsburgh Pirates, my favorite sports team, to pictures of a man in orange hair wearing dresses. Needless to say, this very much upset my father, a meat and potatoes guy from South Dakota, who feared that his son was turning into one of his daughters.
This is so awesome, man.
And so one of the highlights, why I sometimes I get cynical or full of self-pity that advertising has passed me by. So what? But highlight getting to work with Bowie,
Oh my God.
going out in New York in the middle of the night with Bowie, and seeing his wife, I'm on in a negligee. That was fucking cool. But the best when paging was still a thing at an advertising agency, being paged, Jim Riswold, David Bowie on 250. And
Oh my God.
it's just awesome. I thought I could die now. I could die now.
Can I tell you like my encounter?
One last thing on it. And then about 3 months later, I also kind of, as a highlight, getting fired by David Bowie.
My encounter with David Bowie, it was not as cool as yours. However, it happened many years ago. There were like a couple of novella written by Paul Auster. They were like screenplay. One, it was called Smoke, and the other one is called Blue in the Face. In one of these, the adaptation, it was like a part that Lou Reed played as a guy that ran like a tobacco store. It's all a black and white thing. So I got really into that. And after that, I was just like starting advertising, and I felt that like my way of thinking was like so traditional and so stupid. And after that, somehow through Lou Reed, I was introduced to David Bowie. But the first things I actually dive into, it was like Ziggy Stardust and the Spider from Mars, and the whole concept of black hole jumpers. These people that come from and they jump from universe to universe. So there is all like Rolling Stone magazine interview and conversation between David Bowie and William Burroughs about this.
Well, there's your boy. Also, on one of your upcoming questions, he got the cut up method.
Exactly. Now, in fact,
but he employed it in one of his worst albums, Diamond Dogs, pretentious beyond all belief.
Anyway.
But back to Vivian Westwood.
Yes.
For some reason, I was selected to be a student ambassador in 1975, and I traveled through Europe in the summer, including the Soviet Union. I went into that store. Sex. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if John Lydon was sitting there next to the famous jukebox. And later in life, and another, again, what a wonderfully lucky life in advertising, working with Malcolm Mclaren, who was one of the craziest people I've ever met, but a fucking genius. And he got so upset that the client killed his music, which was just idiotic. I came to work one day and he was sitting in my office and dressed me down for not selling it, and then left. He was dressed like an angel, like these flowing robes, and it was just like, okay.
My God.
I fucked up.
I could talk forever about this because it's funny. Like, when I moved to London, one of the first things, I used to live not very far away from King's Roads. And actually, I always got very proud that I bought a Harley Davidson to ride in London because I'm a big motorcycle guy in King's Road. There is actually a Harley Davidson dealer on King's Roads. Oh. But yeah, I mean, it's like, that time, man, it's like, it was amazing. Dude, like 1975, you were like sitting inside. It just sounds like
I still have my original 45 of Anarchy in the UK.
Oh, God.
And God Save the Queen. I still have those 45s.
Go at the years, man. Anyway, look, 6th question about the cut-up technique. It's a literary technique in which a written text is cut up and rearranged to create a new text. The concept can be traced at least back to the Dadaism in 1920s, but it was popularized by William Burroughs in the early 60s. Now, the ocean has its own cut-up technique because the waves function as like rearranging the water. But what would you be the equivalent of a cut-up technique in your life? What did you discover by rearranging all the fragments of you?
Everything.
Everything.
I think everything. I mean, I often said that my advertising work really didn't have any new ideas. It's just I put certain things in a paper bag and shake it up and something new would come out. Like no brief will tell you put Bo Jackson with Bo Diddley, or put, you know, Bugs Bunny with Michael Jordan, or, you know, back to another cathartic moment in my life, seeing with my friend and producer, Bill Davenport, seeing the trailer for She's Gotta Have It, Spike Lee's first movie, and then going to see the movie and the scene where his character, Mars Blackman, finally gets to sleep with the woman of his dreams, Nola Darling, and he won't fucking take off his Air Jordans. It's like looking at Bill looking at me, are you fucking thinking what I'm fucking thinking? Oh yeah, I'm fucking thinking that. So we don't see that movie, who knows what happens? Because at the time, you know, and I've said this 100 million times, but I'm boring and old and forgetful, so I forget that I keep saying the same thing. I think, I'm not sure because I might have forgot, that Nike ads at the time were very, very serious. Show the athlete sweat, you know, have Joe Pitka shoot something absolutely stunningly gorgeous and stick a product shot at the end and call it a day. And then seeing that movie, I think, certainly changed my life, and I'm sure it changed Bill's life, and it changed Nike and WIEDEN+KENNEDY to some extent, that, oh, we can make sports popular culture.
It's so funny, man. It's like,
and it was met with some resistance. I mean, are we sure we want to do this? Are we you know, one at the time, one of our clients was Honda scooters, and we had done commercials with Lou Reed and Grace Jones and Sandra Bernhardt and whatnot, and who, and it was asked, are we trying to turn Nike into Honda? Says, and there were, but to Dan and David's credit, which is something I always tried to learn from them when I became a creative director, it took a while for me to learn it, that they saw such passion and belief in it, in Bill and my eyes. They said, okay, let's see what happens.
That's awesome. You know, I read the story because it's actually written with the words of Dan Wieden on your sites. It's how, like, the day that you run into his office, like, you know.
I couldn't sleep. And Bill would come into my fucking office. He was waiting for me. At my office, I like to get in early before all the meetings start so you can get stuff done. And just, have you written that script yet? Have you written those scripts yet? I'm working on it, Bill. 5 minutes later, have you written those scripts yet? Come on. Jesus, Bill. And I'm glad he kept on me, because my tendency is to be lazy. But God bless Bill Davenport for making me be something that I wasn't.
Ma'am, this is the last question. And we ask this question to all our guests. If there was a wind that blew your sail and you had to come up with a name, what would the name be?
Break wind.
Break wind.
Yeah, I'm one big fart.
Look, Jim, come on, let's not get too romantic, but I don't know how to thank you, because this for me personally has been like, you know, 1 hour, like dive into like most of the things that I love the most, not just in advertising, but in general. So I will cherish this. I will take this. Is it recorded?
Calm down. You sound like You sound like a like a junior high school girl getting
I am.
felt up for the first time.
I am. Look, thank you so much.
Oh, bless you.